I never thought one dinner invitation could change my life. 6 months. That was how long Claire Bennett and I had gone without speaking. Then my phone rang while I was finishing work. Hello. Hi, it's me. I froze. Claire. Yeah. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she cleared her throat. My parents are having dinner tonight. They want us to clear the air. I think it's time we stop pretending the past never happened. I leaned back in my chair. Why now? Does it matter? It matters to me. She sighed. Look, you can come or not. I'm just trying to do something mature. I stared at the silent office around me. Please, she added softly. I'll think about it. I hope you come. The call ended before I could ask anything else. I should have said no. Instead, I spent the next hour wondering why she suddenly cared after disappearing from my life without a single explanation. By evening, I found myself standing outside her parents' beautiful house. Bad idea, I muttered to myself. Still, I walked to the front door and rang the bell. A few seconds later, Helen Bennett opened it. Oh, you're here. Good evening, Mrs. Bennett. She smiled politely, but something about it felt forced. Come inside. I stepped into the familiar living room. Almost nothing had changed. Richard Bennett stood near the fireplace. It's been a while, he said. It has. He offered a handshake. Glad you came. So am I lied. Then I heard footsteps. Claire walked into the room wearing a bright smile. Hey. Hi. You look good. So do you. Her smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm happy you accepted the invitation. I figured clearing the air wasn't a bad idea. It isn't. Before I could say anything else, another man walked into the room. Claire immediately slipped her arm through his. Oh, I almost forgot. This is Ethan. He smiled and extended his hand. Nice to meet you. I'm Ethan Cole. I shook it. Nice to meet you too. His handshake was confident, but everything else about him looked out of place. His suit was clean, but obviously old. The sleeves were too short, and the jacket hung awkwardly across his shoulders. Claire beamed proudly. Ethan and I have been together for several months. I see. She glanced at my face. I understood immediately. This dinner wasn't about making peace. It was about watching my reaction. Lily Bennett entered carrying a tray of drinks. Oh, hi. Hi, Lily. She gave me a small smile before quietly handing everyone a glass. You okay? I asked. She hesitated. I'm fine. Her answer came too quickly. Claire clapped her hands together. Everyone's here. Let's sit. We gathered around the large dining table. Claire deliberately chose the chair beside Ethan, directly across from me. Every few seconds, she looked in my direction, waiting, watching, hoping. Helen placed the first dishes on the table. I hope everyone enjoys dinner. It smells amazing, Ethan said. Richard nodded. Helen worked hard today. Claire laughed. She always does. For a few minutes, conversation stayed harmless. Then Claire smiled at me. So, how's work? It's going well. Still working late every night? Sometimes. She laughed softly. That hasn't changed. I shrugged. I enjoy what I do. I remember. She looked around the table. Actually, I think that's why we never worked. The room became quiet. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Lily looked down at her plate. I calmly picked up my fork. What do you mean? Claire smiled sweetly. You always loved your career more than people. Helen whispered. Claire. What? Claire replied innocently. I'm only joking. She looked back at me. You were always chasing money. Richard remained silent, studying my expression. I understood exactly what was happening. They were waiting for me to become angry, to prove Claire had made the right choice. Instead, I took a slow sip of water and smiled. If that's how you remember things, I said, then there's no point arguing tonight. Claire blinked. For the first time since I arrived, I saw genuine confusion cross her face. Claire stared at me for a second before forcing another smile. Well, she said, I'm glad you've become so calm. I've had 6 months to think. Ethan cleared his throat. Honestly, I didn't know much about your relationship until recently. I looked at him. You don't have to explain anything to me. He nodded awkwardly. I just don't want things to be uncomfortable. They don't have to be. Claire frowned, clearly disappointed that I wasn't reacting the way she expected. Helen placed another dish on the table. Let's eat before everything gets cold. For several minutes, only the sound of silverware filled the room. Then Claire spoke again. You know, Ethan is different from you. Oh, he actually makes time for people. I smiled faintly. I'm happy that works for you. She tilted her head. That's all you're going to say? What else should I say? I don't know. Richard finally spoke. Claire. What? Enough. I'm just making conversation. Lily looked at me apologetically. I'm sorry. I shook my head. You don't have anything to apologize for. Claire laughed. See? He's still trying to be the perfect gentleman. I met her eyes. No, I'm just trying to enjoy dinner. She crossed her arms. You really don't care, do you? That question lingered between us. Did I care? Of course I did. The woman I had once imagined marrying was sitting across from me, proudly showing off the man she had chosen instead. The hurt hadn't disappeared. It had simply learned how to stay quiet. I set down my fork. If I'm being honest, Claire, what happened between us hurt. The table became completely silent. But being angry forever won't change the past. Her confident expression faltered. You don't blame me? I blamed you for a long time. And now I'm tired. She looked away first. For a brief moment, I saw uncertainty replace her confidence. Then she forced another laugh. Well, I guess everything worked out. I hope it did. Ethan smiled politely. I'll do my best to make her happy. I hope you succeed. He seemed surprised by my answer. So, you really mean that? I do. Claire's eyebrows pulled together. You're congratulating us? I reached for my glass. Why wouldn't I? She didn't answer. I stood slightly and lifted my glass toward them. Congratulations to both of you. Everyone froze. I sincerely hope you build a happy life together. Ethan slowly raised his own glass. Thank you. Helen blinked several times. Richard looked genuinely confused. Lily smiled for the first time that evening. Claire, however, couldn't hide her disappointment. She had expected jealousy. She had expected anger. Instead, she had received peace. After dinner, everyone drifted into the living room. I thanked Helen for the meal. It was delicious. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. Richard walked me to the front door. I'm glad you handled tonight the way you did. I didn't come here to fight. He nodded. I know. Behind him, I heard Claire call my name. Can we talk? I turned around. For a minute. She stepped onto the porch and folded her arms. You've changed. So have you. I thought you'd be angrier. I almost was. What stopped you? I looked up at the dark sky before answering. I realized that begging someone to love me never brings them back. She opened her mouth, but said nothing. There was a time when I would have done anything to fix us, I continued. But you believed a rumor instead of believing me. Her eyes widened. You never even asked if it was true. She looked down. I thought you cared more about your career than our future. I cared about our future so much that I worked harder every day to build one. Silence settled between us. Finally, she whispered, maybe I made a mistake. I gave her a tired smile. Maybe. She looked as though she wanted me to say more. I didn't. After a few seconds, I walked toward my car. Take care of yourself, Claire. You too. I drove away without looking back. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. As the city lights blurred past my windshield, I made myself one promise. I would never beg for anyone's love again. If someone wanted to leave my life, I would let them walk away. What Claire didn't know was that everything was about to change. Months of sleepless nights, impossible meetings, and endless work were finally about to pay off. In just a few days, the biggest opportunity of my life would arrive. She believed she had already seen the best version of me. She couldn't have been more wrong. A week changed everything. 7 days after that unforgettable dinner, I was sitting in my office reviewing reports when my phone vibrated. The screen showed one name, Noah Carter. I answered immediately. Morning, Noah. His voice exploded through the speaker. We did it. I laughed. What are you talking about? The contract. What contract? Our international deal. I stood so quickly that my chair rolled backward. Stop joking. I'm not joking. My heartbeat doubled. No, they signed it an hour ago. I couldn't speak. He continued before I found my voice. The final documents are complete. The money has already started moving. I leaned against my desk. You're serious. I've never been more serious in my life. For several seconds, all I heard was my own breathing. We actually did it, I whispered. We spent 4 years building this company. Noah replied. For years of 18-hour workdays, rejected pitches, sleepless nights, and investors telling us we were wasting our time. I smiled. I remember every single one. And now, those same investors are calling to congratulate us. I laughed. That's ironic. It gets better. There's more. The international partnership values the company higher than we ever expected. How much higher? He told me the number. I closed my eyes. No way. Yes way. Check it again. I already checked it 3 times. I sat down slowly. So, my friend, Noah said with a grin I could hear through the phone, we're officially rich. The sentence sounded unreal. Rich, a word I'd spent years chasing without ever making it my only goal. I looked around my simple office. Nothing had changed. Yet somehow everything had. When do we announce it? I asked. Tomorrow. I'd rather keep things quiet. I figured you'd say that. I don't need a celebration. You deserve one. We both do. He chuckled. Fine. We'll celebrate later. Deal. After ending the call, I remained silent. I thought I would feel unstoppable. Instead, I felt peaceful. There was no urge to prove anything. No desire to call Claire. No fantasy about showing her what she had lost. Success had arrived, but revenge hadn't come with it. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Come in. Emma Brooks stepped inside carrying a folder. You wanted these reports. Thanks, Emma. She placed them on my desk before studying my face. You look different. Different. Happier. I smiled. Do I? You've been smiling at absolutely nothing for the last 5 minutes. I guess I have. She folded her arms. Are you going to tell me why? I slid the signed agreement across the desk. She looked at the first page, then the second, then the final signature. Her eyes became enormous. Wait. Go ahead. We actually closed this. We did. She covered her mouth. Oh my goodness. I laughed. That's about the same reaction Noah had. No. She shook her head repeatedly. This changes everything. It changes the business. It changes your life. Maybe. She looked directly at me. You're officially one of the youngest successful founders in the industry. I still have work tomorrow. She laughed. Only you would react like that. I've spent too many years working to suddenly become someone else. Emma smiled warmly. That's exactly why people trust you. I looked out the office window. Money solves many problems, but not all of them. I glanced back at her. You noticed? I notice everything. She hesitated before continuing. You still think about her sometimes. I didn't answer immediately. Finally, I nodded. Sometimes. Emma spoke gently. Does it still hurt? Less than before. But it still hurts. I won't lie. She leaned against the desk. I watched you throw yourself into work every day since the breakup. It helped. It also exhausted you. Probably. She smiled. Maybe now you'll finally take a vacation. I laughed. I'll think about it. You won't. You're right. She pointed toward me. I knew it. For the first time in months, laughing didn't feel forced. Emma noticed. I'm glad. So am I. As she walked toward the door, she paused. One more thing. What is it? I'm proud of you. Those simple words meant more than she probably realized. After she left, I looked once more at the signed agreement resting on my desk. A week earlier, I had walked away from Claire's house promising never to beg for love again. Now life had answered me in a completely different way. Without warning, without revenge, without bitterness, just quiet success. And somehow, that felt far more satisfying than proving anyone wrong. The news spread faster than I expected. Within 2 days, old classmates, former coworkers, and distant acquaintances were sending congratulations. Some were sincere. Others suddenly remembered I existed. I answered the genuine messages and ignored the rest. One afternoon, Noah called again. Have you checked social media? No. You're trending in our industry. I laughed. That sounds exhausting. It probably is. I'll survive without reading comments. You really don't care? I care about building the company, not becoming famous. You're impossible. So you've told me. After we hung up, I returned to work without another thought. What I didn't know was that the news had already reached Claire. According to mutual friends, she had heard about the international deal during lunch. At first, she refused to believe it. That can't be true, she reportedly said. Then someone showed her an article announcing our company's success. The silence that followed spoke louder than any words. Later that evening, Ethan learned the truth as well. "Is it really him?" he asked. Claire nodded. "I think so. You never told me he owned a software company. It was still small when we were together. And now?" She didn't answer. Ethan sighed. "You've been quiet ever since you heard." "I'm just surprised." "Only surprised?" Claire looked away. "I don't know." Their conversations became shorter after that. The comfortable laughter they once shared slowly disappeared. Every success story they heard about me created another uncomfortable silence between them. Ethan finally asked the question that had been bothering him. "Are you comparing me to him?" Claire looked offended. "No." "Then why do you keep mentioning his name?" "I don't. You brought him up 3 times this week." She crossed her arms. "You're imagining things." "I don't think I am." Neither of them sounded convinced. Meanwhile, I had no idea any of those conversations were happening. My focus remained exactly where it had always been. Work, growth, the future. Late Friday afternoon, my receptionist called. "You have a visitor." I wasn't expecting anyone. She says her name is Lily Bennett. I blinked. "Send her in." A minute later, Lily stepped into my office. She looked nervous. Hi, Lily. I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all." She remained standing. "I actually came to apologize." "You don't owe me one." "I do." I gestured toward the chair. "Sit down." She sat carefully, twisting her hands together. I felt guilty ever since that dinner. "I appreciated your kindness that night. It wasn't enough." I waited quietly. She took a deep breath. "Claire made a terrible mistake." "I know." "No, you don't know everything." My attention sharpened. "What do you mean?" "It wasn't only her own decision." I frowned. "Go on." She hesitated before speaking. "Jason Turner lied to her." The name immediately sounded familiar. "Claire's friend." Lily nodded. "He kept telling her you cared more about becoming successful than building a future with her." "I never said that." "I know. He even claimed you planned to leave her once your career took off." I let out a slow breath. "So that's where the rumor started. He manipulated everything." "What?" Lily looked disappointed. "I think he enjoyed controlling people." I sat silently for a moment. "So Claire believed him?" "Completely. Without asking me." "I'm sorry." I smiled gently. "You don't need to apologize for someone else's choices." Tears gathered in her eyes. "I wish things had happened differently." "So do I." She looked around my office. "When she found out about your success." I raised a hand. "You don't have to tell me." "But it doesn't matter anymore." She studied my face carefully. "You really mean that?" "I do." "You aren't angry?" "I was." "And now?" I leaned back in my chair. "Now I finally understand something." "What?" "My happiness doesn't depend on Claire believing in me." Lily smiled through watery eyes. "I think that's the healthiest thing I've heard all year." I laughed softly. "It took me long enough." She stood and offered her hand. "I'm glad you're doing well. Thank you for coming." As she reached the door, she turned back. "I hope someday Claire realizes what she threw away." I smiled politely. "I hope someday she finds peace." After Lily left, I looked out the office window. The city was exactly the same as it had been a week earlier. The buildings hadn't changed. The streets hadn't changed. But I had. For months, I had measured my worth through someone else's opinion. Now, for the first time, I felt completely free. No rumors. No regret. No need for revenge. Only the quiet confidence that I had earned everything standing before me. And deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. Life has a strange way of collecting unpaid debts. Sometimes those debts are money. Sometimes they're trust. Sometimes they're choices that can never be taken back. I learned that lesson months ago. Claire was only beginning to learn it now. I was finishing a meeting with Noah when my phone buzzed. It was Lily. "Hey, Lily, do you have a minute?" "Sure." Her voice sounded exhausted. "A lot has happened. I figured something was wrong." "You remember Jason Turner?" "I do." Claire confronted him. I leaned back in my chair. "What happened?" "It wasn't private." "It wasn't." They argued in front of a cafe full of people. "What started it?" Claire finally found out he lied. I remained silent. Lily continued. "She demanded to know why he kept telling everyone you cared more about money than her." And he laughed. I frowned. He laughed. He actually admitted he made the whole thing up. I closed my eyes for a moment. So it was true. He said he wanted to open Claire's eyes. What does that even mean? I don't think even he knows. I sighed. That's unbelievable. It gets worse. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the rest. What else happened? One of Jason's friends walked over during the argument, and he demanded his money back. What money? The money Jason borrowed. I frowned. I don't understand. He borrowed money from several people. So, he used Claire's name. My expression hardened. He told everyone Claire would repay the loans. Exactly. I rubbed my forehead. Did Claire know? Not at all. What happened after that? More people joined the argument. How many? At least 5. I let out a slow breath. That's a disaster. It became one. Lily sounded embarrassed just remembering it. Everyone started asking Jason when he'd repay them. And he couldn't. So the truth came out. Completely. I stood and walked toward my office window. What did Claire do? She walked away crying. I'm sorry she had to experience that. I knew you'd say that. What do you mean? You never celebrate other people's pain. There isn't much to celebrate. No. She paused. There really isn't. After ending the call, I stared at the city below. Justice had arrived on its own. I hadn't needed revenge. I hadn't needed to expose anyone. The truth had done all the work. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Come in. Emma stepped inside carrying 2 cups of coffee. I thought you might need this. You always know. She handed me one. You look like you're thinking too much. I probably am. Want to talk about it? I nodded. Lily called. And Jason finally admitted he lied. Emma's eyes widened. Seriously? In public? She shook her head slowly. I guess lies don't last forever. They rarely do. She sat across from me. How do you feel? I thought carefully before answering. Relieved. Not angry. I've already spent enough time being angry. She smiled. That's growth. Maybe. No maybe about it. I laughed quietly. You always have an answer. It's part of my job. I thought your job was keeping this office organized. It is. She grinned. But sometimes I organize people too. I couldn't argue with that. She had seen me at my worst. She had watched me bury myself in work after Claire left. Now, she was watching me slowly become someone different. Someone lighter. Before leaving, Emma stopped at the door. One more question. Shoot. If Claire apologized today. I didn't answer immediately. I honestly don't know. She nodded thoughtfully. Fair enough. But I do know one thing. What's that? I can forgive someone without giving them another chance. Emma smiled. I think that's one of the hardest lessons anyone can learn. After she left, I repeated those words in my head. Forgiveness wasn't the same as trust. One could return. The other, once broken, rarely ever did. At that moment, I had no idea life was about to test whether I truly believed those words. 3 days later, life tested me. I had just finished reviewing a proposal when my receptionist called. There's someone here asking to see you. Who is it? Claire Bennett. My hand stopped moving. For a long moment, I simply stared at the papers on my desk. Finally, I answered. Send her in. A minute later, the door opened. Claire stepped inside. She looked nothing like the confident woman who had smiled across the dinner table. Her eyes were red. Her shoulders were slumped. She looked exhausted. Hi, she whispered. Hi, Claire. She remained near the door. I wasn't sure you'd let me in. I almost didn't. She nodded. I understand. I pointed toward the chair. You can sit. Thank you. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. Ethan left. I looked at her quietly. He said something I'll never forget. What did he say? She swallowed hard. He told me, you never loved me. You were only trying to prove you had moved on. The words hung in the air. I think he was right, she admitted. I'm sorry. So am I. She wiped away a tear. I hurt him. She looked at me. And I hurt you even more. I remained silent. She took a deep breath. Lily told me she visited you. She did. She also told me she explained everything about Jason. I nodded. She did. Claire lowered her head. I believed every lie. You did. I never gave you the chance to explain. No. I thought I was protecting myself. Instead of answering, I waited. She continued speaking through quiet tears. I let pride make my decisions. Her voice trembled. I kept telling myself you cared more about work than me. She laughed bitterly. The truth was, you were working for our future. Painful memories returned without warning. The late nights, the canceled weekends, the promises I had made. Every sacrifice had been for us. I know that now, she whispered. I wish you had known it then. So do I. She looked directly into my eyes. You were the best relationship I ever had. I didn't answer. I ruined it because I was insecure. Silence filled the office. Finally, she asked the question I had been expecting. Can you forgive me? I looked at her for several seconds before speaking. Yes. She blinked. You can? I forgave you a while ago. Hope appeared across her face. Then I quietly added, but forgiveness isn't the same as starting over. Her smile disappeared. You don't trust me anymore. I shook my head slowly. When you believe someone else's words instead of mine, something broke. I know. I loved you, Claire. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. I know. I would have done anything to build a future together. I know. But love without trust doesn't survive. She covered her face with her hands. I'm so sorry. I believe you. You do? Yes. She looked confused. Then why can't we try again? I stood and walked toward the window. Because every happy memory would be followed by the fear that one rumor could destroy everything again. She didn't argue. She couldn't. We both knew it was true. After a long silence, she spoke softly. I kept hoping you'd fight for me. I turned around. I already had. What do you mean? I fought every day while we were together. She stared at me. I worked longer hours because I wanted us to have a better life. Another tear slipped down her cheek. I thought you were choosing work over me. I was choosing our future. She closed her eyes. I understand that now. I know, but understanding something too late doesn't change what happened. She nodded slowly. I suppose it doesn't. I picked up my jacket. I should get back to work. She stood as well. So this is goodbye? I smiled gently. I think we already said goodbye a long time ago. She walked toward the door before stopping. I really did love you. I know. I just wasn't mature enough to protect what we had. I gave her one final nod. I hope you find happiness someday. She tried to smile through her tears. I hope you do too. After she left, I stood quietly for a moment. There was no anger, no bitterness, no desire to look back, only peace. As I returned to my desk, I realized something I had never believed possible. My heart still remembered loving Claire, but it no longer belonged to the past. Some apologies heal wounds. Others simply remind us how much we've grown. Claire finally understood that some mistakes cannot be undone, no matter how sincere the apology. And for the first time since losing her, I felt completely free. Several months changed my life more than I ever imagined. Our company continued breaking records. New clients arrived every week. The team grew larger. The office became louder. Yet the biggest change had nothing to do with business. It happened inside me. For the first time in years, I woke up without carrying the weight of yesterday. One morning, Noah walked into my office holding 2 coffees. I brought peace offerings. I laughed. What did you break? My diet. That's serious? Worse. He handed me a cup. I accidentally promised the marketing team I'd join their morning workout. I nearly choked on my coffee. I know. You hate exercise. I hate mornings even more. We both laughed. After a moment, Noah leaned back in his chair. You know something? What? Losing Claire was the best investment you ever made. I shook my head. Only you could compare heartbreak to financial planning. I'm serious. I know. He pointed around the office. If that breakup hadn't happened, would you have thrown yourself into building all of this? I honestly don't know. You would have stayed comfortable. Maybe. No, maybe. He smiled. Pain pushed you. It did. But you didn't let it define you. His words stayed with me long after he left. A few minutes later, Emma knocked gently on my open door. Busy. Not for you. She stepped inside carrying a tablet. I've organized next week's meetings. You're saving my life again. I save it at least twice a week. I should probably give you a raise. She smiled. I wasn't going to say no. I laughed. I knew you wouldn't. She sat across from me. You look relaxed today. I feel relaxed. That's new. It is. She studied me for a moment. I've noticed something. What's that? You don't look over your shoulder anymore. I tilted my head. What do you mean? You used to expect bad news every time your phone rang. She wasn't wrong. Back then, every unexpected call felt like another problem waiting to happen. Now life felt different. I guess I stopped waiting for disaster. She smiled warmly. You deserve that. I looked at her. When did we become such good friends? She pretended to think. Probably somewhere between your 100 coffee request and your 1,000th meeting. I only drink a reasonable amount of coffee. She raised an eyebrow. You had 4 cups yesterday. I said reasonable. She laughed. I'll never win this argument. No, you really won't. The conversation drifted naturally, just as it always did. There was never any pressure between us. No pretending. No games. No guessing what the other person actually meant. Everything felt honest. Looking back, I realized how different that was from my past. With Claire, I had constantly worried about saying the wrong thing. With Emma, silence never felt uncomfortable. Late that afternoon, she stopped by my desk again. One more thing. I'm almost afraid to ask. She held up an elegant envelope. We've been invited. To what? A charity fundraising gala. I opened the invitation. Our company was selected as one of this year's major sponsors. Noah already confirmed he'd attend. I smiled. So, I don't really have a choice. Not unless you want him giving your speech. I laughed. That would be a disaster. It would certainly be entertaining. I looked at the invitation again. When is it? Saturday evening. I'll be there. She nodded. I thought you would. As she turned toward the door, I called after her. Emma. She looked back. Yeah. Thanks. For what? For staying. She looked surprised. I never planned on leaving. Those simple words settled quietly in my heart. Trust, loyalty, honesty. They weren't built overnight. They were earned one conversation at a time. And somehow, without either of us forcing anything, Emma had become one of the most important people in my life. Not because she tried to replace anyone, but because she never asked me to become someone I wasn't. A few days later, dressed in a black suit and standing outside the brightly lit ballroom, I took one deep breath before stepping inside. I had no idea that the evening was about to bring me face to face with the last chapter of my past. The ballroom buzzed with conversation as guests moved between tables, greeting old friends and making new connections. Noah walked over carrying 2 glasses. There you are. I was wondering how long it would take you to find me. I'm excellent at locating free food. I never doubted that. He handed me a glass. You look nervous. I don't usually enjoy public events. You'll survive. I always do. Before I could reply, my eyes caught a familiar face across the room. Claire. She stood quietly near one of the windows. Gone was the confident smile she had worn at her parents' dinner table months ago. She looked calmer, more mature. When our eyes met, she hesitated before walking toward me. Hi, Claire. She smiled politely. You look well. Thank you. So do you. There was no tension, no bitterness. Just 2 people who had once shared a chapter of life. I wanted to congratulate you, she said. For everything. Thank you. I've been following your company's success. It's been a busy few months. I'm proud of you. The word surprised me. I appreciate that. She looked down for a moment. I also wanted to say something else. I waited quietly. I sincerely hope you're happy. I am. She nodded with a small smile. I'm glad. There were no hidden meanings. No attempts to make me jealous. No games. Only acceptance. I've learned a lot this year, she admitted. So have I. I'm sorry again. I know. She looked relieved that I didn't reopen old wounds. I won't keep you. Take care of yourself, Claire. You too. She walked away without looking back. For the first time, watching her leave didn't hurt. It simply felt like the end of a story that had already been finished. Noah appeared beside me almost immediately. Everything okay? I smiled. Better than okay. He glanced toward Claire. You 2 talked. We did. And I wished her well. He laughed. Look at you. What? You've officially become the mature one. I hope so. A few minutes later, the host stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd now like to invite one of tonight's sponsors to say a few words. Noah gently nudged my shoulder. That's your cue. I shook my head with a laugh. I still don't enjoy speeches. You'll do great. I walked onto the stage as polite applause filled the room. Looking across the audience, I noticed Emma smiling encouragingly near the front. Noah raised his glass from his table. Even Claire quietly watched from the back of the ballroom. I picked up the microphone. Good evening, everyone. The room became silent. When I was invited to speak tonight, I thought about what success really means. I paused. For a long time, I believed success was measured by money, promotions, or business achievements. A few people nodded. I was wrong. I lifted my glass. Months ago, I raised a glass during a dinner that changed my life. A faint smile crossed my face. At the time, I didn't realize I was standing at the beginning of a completely different journey. The room listened quietly. So tonight, I'd like to raise another toast. Everyone lifted their glasses. This one isn't for wealth. It isn't even for success. It's for the painful lessons that teach us who we really are. It's for the people who stand beside us during our hardest days. I glanced toward Emma. It's for second chances, not always with other people, but with ourselves. And most importantly, I smiled. It's for having the courage to keep moving forward, even when life doesn't go according to plan. The room erupted into applause. I stepped away from the microphone feeling lighter than ever before. Emma met me near the stage. That was beautiful. Thank you. You meant every word. I did. She smiled. I'm proud of you. Noah joined us. I'll admit it. What? That was a much better speech than I would have given. I had no doubts. He laughed loudly. As the evening came to an end, I walked outside into the cool night air. The city lights stretched endlessly before me. I thought back to that painful dinner months earlier. At the time, I believed losing Claire was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. Now I understood the truth. The greatest revenge had never been making her regret losing me. It was becoming someone who no longer needed her at all. With a quiet smile, I slipped my hands into my pockets and started walking toward tomorrow, leaving yesterday exactly where it belonged. The end.